Noah has a tremendous amount of experience in virtual production, probably more in the Bay Area than anybody I know. So this should be interesting to see what's the real world like today in the virtual world. All right, take it away, Noah.
All right. Thanks, Dave. Before we even get started, I always like to take a quick poll here. Who in this room has some kind of hands-on or even tangential experience with virtual production, like LED walls, mocap? Okay, decent amount. Great. Who in this room is doing something to do with production in some manner that is influenced in some way or combined in some way with AI, artificial intelligence? Okay, good. So this is an interesting panel because we have some great experts here, both on the AI side and the virtual production side. But because we like to show and don't tell, first thing we want to do is show you a quick clip that shows a little bit about what each of these gents is doing. So if we can roll that clip, take a look. Oh, there's more.
Hey, Dad. I'd like you to meet Margaret.
Nice to meet you, Margaret.
In Here, Robert Zemeckis takes audiences on a groundbreaking journey, transforming a single room into the stage for decades of human life. To tell this ambitious story, we had to make iconic actors appear as young as 16 and as old as 90, sustaining their performances seamlessly across over an hour of screen time.
I love it here.
Capturing the full emotional depth and authenticity of the actors' performances across such complex and extended scenes was an extraordinary challenge that demanded a new way forward. We reimagined the process with a groundbreaking neural performance toolset. On set, this real-time de-aging system allowed actors and directors to see younger or older versions of themselves live as they perform. In post-production, our team combined advanced visual data science with fine-grained compositing, ensuring the final images felt real and emotionally resonant.
Wow. Oh, we have to show Rose.
You could spend the rest of the night here.
With Here, we've set a new benchmark for what's possible in cinema,
I could spend the rest of my life here.
proving that innovation and artistry can work hand in hand to tell stories in ways we've never seen before.
Okay, that's our reel. So you can see quite a wide, oh yeah, feel free to clap. Yeah, that's great. I saw some people like thinking they could. Feel free. We actually had an additional guest who had car trouble, so AI, not the solution to everything just yet, but you know, the dressing video in there was that. Anyways, so I think, I want to start with you. Here, has anyone in the audience seen this movie or heard of this movie Here? You should check it out. It's like really state-of-the-art filmmaking because the entire film takes place from one fixed camera position. And obviously, you've seen how the actors are de-aged. What was fascinating to me is not only are they doing AI in two flavors, post and live, but there's also then an LED wall outside of the window that you're seeing all this virtual production. So really, like, very sophisticated set. So tell us a little bit about this, because these two flavors of AI, we all know the idea of doing deep faking kind of work in post-production, but what does it look like when you're actually doing it live on set? What does that involve?
Yeah, I mean, I've come from the more traditional way to do it, so 3D computer graphics, you know, making models, textures, and the problem with that is that you're like 6 months down the line at best, and all the decisions that are being made on set are kind of guesses, really. So the transformational thing for us to be able to run like optimized models, as you could see in the movie, right there and then with the actors, with the director, with the cinematographer, you know, with the makeup team, which was constantly, we had like our system in the makeup trailer. They were doing the makeup, like how much makeup do we apply on Tom and Robin to achieve the best, to trigger the AI network in the best way. So being able to be there on set, like with the filmmakers and just put these tools in their hands was such a different experience, really, than what we've been, because usually all these, you're kind of guessing it at the set and then fix it in post, quote unquote, and then, you know, you have to deal with what you get. So even sometimes working with Bob, and we know the technology at like glancing angles, it's harder because the data is sparse there, and ultimately, like everything AI, it's a data game. Being able to say to Bob, well, if Tom can turn 15 degrees, you'll get a better shot, and being able to show him on his second monitor, like just have him play with it. And just have him direct young Tom. When we ran it, I was curious because, you know, some virtual production works really well on set. Some becomes a bit of a gimmick, you know. It's also really up to the director how they kind of integrate it and work with it. I was very curious when we went out with it because it was kind of a first if he was going to latch onto it. So he had 2 monitors, his raw feed and his augmented young feed, and he was just hooked into it like constantly, and after every take, the actors would come and watch their younger selves, and they had like what we call a youth mirror in rehearsals, where they could see how their current day expressions trigger their AI model and tune their performance to their model. So yeah, all this interaction and this interactivity is just a different game. Yeah,
it's really amazing work. Erik, I want to go to you now because you have the project that Erik. First of all, give us like a 10-second intro to who you are. But Erik's project was the one that there was a quick VFX shot of planets kind of orbiting. And what's interesting to me is your project started as a virtual production project and became an AI project just because all of these AI tools kind of exploded during the production. So you really like made this change in the middle of a production. Tell us all that.
Yeah, so Europa is basically got shot on Stony Stage 7. It's we were one of the first people to get to shoot there, so it's a lot of fun, amazing stage. And taking it to the next level, as we got into post, we had several shots that we just simply didn't have budget for. The writer-director had really conceived of a couple things just outside of the scope of our feasibility financially. And you know, it's hard because you see something like that, and if you looked at it closely, the shot actually didn't work. It broke in the end if you look very closely. But that's roughly like 5 months ago that was done, and so it's really getting so much better all the time. That's originally a runway shot, 720p, 8-bit color. You then take it into Topaz Labs, where you're going to get 16-bit 2K. And we can bring it into post and actually work on it at that particular point. So yeah, that was a great transition, and I'm actually doing 3 different pieces right now completely in AI. An AI animated piece, an AI hybrid piece where we're using iPhones to shoot ground truth content and then converting it, and then finally we're going to be using purely generative on VO too. So getting to play with everything across the board at this point.
And to kind of amplify that for just a second, I mean, if you don't know Erik, what he does is run the Entertainment Technology Center for USC, University of Southern California Film School, which is like, if not the best, depending on who you talk to, definitely close to it. What do students think about this? I mean, you've now seen students that have been interested in virtual production coming through, and now you're seeing AI. Like, what do they see as the potential of this for their careers, what they might be able to achieve with this technology?
So I think it's a radical change. I mean, you should see the embracing just the VFX or virtual production. We have a Sony wall at our particular school. I don't actually teach a class. I just get to go do the fun things. But it is packed. You can't hardly get into the class. That wall is being used 24/7. They just absolutely love it. And we've actually also been a pioneer with Ben Hansford there for AI classes. It's kind of surprising. He's been running a class for, I think, almost 2 years now in AI and filmmaking. And what you can do is just incredible at this particular point. And you know, like VO2 and 4K and some of the stuff coming around the corner just changes how things can be done. Like again, on the Europa shot, that would have taken us 2 to 3 VFX artists 4 months. We did it in an afternoon. You know, that was a quick turnaround piece. So I really think that there's going to be a radical change in post in the next 2 years. Because of what is coming and what is possible.
Wonderful segue. Chad, your tool is post-focused. What we saw in this was kind of like content categorization and tagging and sort of searching for stuff on steroids. How does AI enhance this process and how is it being used?
Yeah, so at 12 Labs, the AI we've developed remembers content like a human would. So using Erik's example, if he's trying to find that scene of Europa, right, as a cutaway or a positioning shot, essentially, we can very drastically reduce the time to find that content. That could be something in his library from 50 years ago that we're going to pull forward for him to make use of again, right? Or we can actually identify that he has a content hole in his script with nothing that's there that needs to be replaced. And it could be generative or it could be actual shot again, whatever it happens to be. But our goal is to make it more efficient through the process.
And I have to say, that's really so critical. You think that this is all about generative. This is about utility. It's about all the tools in the pipeline and what's going to make things work more efficient, find things, use things, all that stuff. So,
yeah, on that note, I think that, you know, maybe a question that some folks in the room would have coming from kind of the corporate world of video, where might these tools serve a more media department, corporate communications department sort of focus that's less doing sort of public-facing consumption, but more internal consumption? Like, but what might you see as like the use of AI in these kinds of contexts?
I mean, it's kind of a lot of the search, a kind of multimodal thing is interesting, I think, I like to call it in many places like a bit of kind of proceduralism on steroids. Like if I look back at the visual effects pipeline, which is most familiar to me, I mean, it's also not something that is entirely new, like in the last 2 years. Like we've been using machine learning over the last 10, 15 years. It's just in small components to automate tasks, learn tasks, and, you know, supersede more kind of traditional algorithmic, you know, solutions to them. But it's like finding media, generating quick shots, right? I mean, that's a great example. Like it doesn't need to be, for a lot of content creation, the quality bar is not Hollywood level, and you know, it's rapidly kind of emerging to, I mean, resolving to that standard, and even with the right layers of control, like what we did on here and other projects, you can push it there, but it's all about taking control over the networks and building these easy to use tools so you can put it in the hands of artists or production or marketing, like a whole gamut of possibilities. Yeah.
So on that note, Chad, do you see more customers as kind of end users interacting with your product through a plugin in their editing tool, or is it like an entire company's sort of back-end workflow to keep everybody organized and aware of what content is available?
Yeah, it's a wide range. So we're an API. So it doesn't matter if you're in an Adobe editor or if you're working off of a MAM of some sort, right? You're going to access us through that API. So it fits in multiple places in the workflow. Production is a very sweet spot for us, I'd say. But it actually goes all the way to business intelligence, right? Of knowing what our content is, looks like, and feels like, and how we can marry that with a consumer at the end of it, and we create those insights for the people building content.
Maybe I'll throw this one to Erik. What is the entry point these days? I mean, everybody in this room, I'm sure, is thinking like, this sounds great, but I don't know where to begin because there's just so many of these tools and I don't understand this stuff. Like, what's a good entry point?
So, I mean, I get a lot of people saying, how would I get into this or how I would learn this? And I think that there's two pieces of advice I'd give people. I see a lot of courses online, well, it will take you 15 minutes a day, and each day you walk through a different tool set. So, like 31 days of AI. And I think that's a wonderful place to just kind of get a swath of what's out there. The other one I really love is Curious Refuge. If you're really trying to pay attention to the latest models, they put a very high quality newsletter out every week, video and everything. So fantastic work from them.
But it's overwhelming. Like that's the problem.
Exactly.
I think. Like it's so much research and tools and models and video models coming out every day. I think maybe finding some people that are in your space and kind of latching onto it. Usually, what you see is like some research will come out, and then a little bit later, a whole bunch of implementations come out, and then naturally people start to gravitate towards the best one. Like so, just following that kind of wave is a good way to start, I think. But still, it's overwhelming. Even for us, like trying to be, to be on the best, the latest papers, and you can implement them all, you can test them all. You really have to pick your battles. I think that's the art at the moment, like pick the right paper.
Yeah, and there's a ton of research from all of us, right, in the space, so it is overwhelming. But it is a lean in. If you're passionate about it, lean into how it affects your life. Find a tool that you think is interesting and spend your 15 minutes on it that day, understanding it better. And almost all of us offer free access to our tools as well. So you can go to our website and sign up for free and start using it day one. And they're all doing that today, so you can get an understanding of what their capabilities are and how it affects your world.
So I'd also say that a lot of the impression we have are these long, kind of winded, dramatic shots. Then you're like, that's very AI. But right now we're getting to a point of control and consistency. If you start understanding what you can do with it, I can have a consistent character. I can have the right background. I can change the costume and design. You can do a lot more than this spaghetti on the wall editing process that you're kind of currently seeing from kind of freelancer individuals. And that's where it starts to get into the value of corporate video, where you have to have some sophistication. You have to have those aspects to really produce what you need to tell your stories.
So I want to back up for 1 second. One of the panelists who couldn't make it, does everybody remember in the video there was like a clip with a guy kind of like getting different costumes going on? So that person's name is Mojo Leibowitz, and anybody ever heard of a show called Babylon 5, sci-fi show? Ever heard of this show? Okay. Anyone ever hear of Lightwave 3D animation tool? Okay. So Mojo was one of the very first people to use Lightwave back in the early 90s when it came out as sort of like CG for the masses. It was like people had seen Jurassic Park done by ILM, and now, okay, this is something you can run on your own computer. And now he's very all in on AI, and he's saying, and again, I wish he could be here to tell you this himself, but he had car trouble, like I said, but he says he's getting the exact same complaints and pushbacks from people that he remembers from the Lightwave years, which is the computer's doing all the work, this is not really animation, you're not an artist, all that stuff. So I point that out just to say, for the people who think this is just a fad and it's gonna come and go, it's happened before, it will happen again, like they say on Battlestar Galactica. And it feels like that moment where you either lean into something that is definitely going to change how we all work, or stay on the sidelines. So I hope you will all lean in. On that note, where do you see things going in the next 2 or 3 years? Because obviously everyone in this room is also in charge of forecasting and deciding where the company might steer into things in the future. Where are we going next?
I think one addition to that, the beauty of leaning in is that you get to help to shape it. I think that's very exciting, for me at least.
Yeah, I actually think it creates some creative freedom. right? If it's your project and you want it to have a certain look and a certain feel and be done a certain way, you can now use tools to help you create that, or even measure that if you're paying somebody else to do it for you, right? You can now look back and say, does this represent the theme I set out for on day one? And there are tools that can help you understand that.
I think it's kind of like moving from a manual typewriter to a computer and an application. This is going to radically affect all of us in the way we work. Embrace it or don't, because a lot of wonderful people can write novels on typewriters, but it's here, and it's going to change us.
Yeah, I think we could probably all agree that the biggest sort of pushback we hear about AI tools is that they're stealing jobs, they're taking away entry-level positions that might lead to apprenticeships, that might lead to higher-paying jobs. What is the sort of panacea one might have to embrace that and not get left behind? Like, where can a person say, I'm not going to be a specialist in, say, the best rotoscoping artist of all time, because rotoscoping is probably going away because these AI tools do it faster and cheaper. I'll be a generalist who understands how to operate these AI tools. Like, what does that look like for a person trying to stay in a job?
Yeah, I'll speak up because I've experienced it. I spent many years with Avid early in my career. And Avid created the film composer. If you go back that far, most of you probably don't. But literally revolutionized editing from a film to film edit session to a digital version of that. Massively changed the industry. And then you leap forward another 15 years, they created something called Script Sync, which literally took days to align content by assistant editors and allowed it to happen with machine learning, essentially, in a matter of minutes. Both of those things were good for our industry at the end of the process, right? Both of the things moved us forward radically, and I think that's where we sit today. It's another major leap forward.
So we're really looking at how to empower the creatives and the artists along the process. So, like, for example, on Chickaboom, we looked at over 80 different tools, and we decided what in that process can be changed and replaced, and what are the best of the breed of these tools, what tools are not ready for professional level, what tools are purely academic ideas, and trying to narrow it or winnow it down onto a framework or a common way to execute. And so you still might be in a niche aspect of what you're doing to some degree. I mean, not rotoscoping, but there will be areas or zones, and you need to be able to comprehend what's going on. Find the people out there who love exploring the future, who are enthusiastic about new things, and, feed those folks.
I mean, I think in the end, it's what I like to see it is it's kind of leveling the playing field a little bit and closing the quality gap. If you look at, for example, what we achieved on here in the budget, it's like a 60 million budget. If you want to do this the traditional way, if you go to the ILMs of the world and you're like, can you DH Tom Hanks, Robin Wright, Paul Bettany, Kelly Riley to 4 different age targets for an hour of filmmaking, they'll probably charge you the entire budget of the movie for that, and it might not cut it. So this tool allowed this story to be told because there just wouldn't be that budget for a movie like this. So, and that gives, that just brings down, just open the proceduralism that you achieve through the tools, as long as you implement enough control, allows the repetitive bits to be, just like with every technological advancements, to be replaced and to be opened up to more creative implementation. I think we'll just see more high quality content, but the creative stuff will still prevail. I mean, it's like billions of songs on Spotify, but we all listen to like 0.1% of it. So yeah, it's just gives everyone the same tools basically, or better capabilities. Yeah.
So the dean of the school was in talking to some folks at one of the major tech companies, and someone had come to her and said, I started the AI course in the beginning, and I said, why in the world did I ever go to film school as I started this? And by the end of the class, they said, I'm so glad I went to film school, because you have to understand how to tell a story. The language of the narrative is critical, and it will continue to be critical, no matter how fast or dynamic or changing you can produce things. You have to understand story.
So, My goal with this panel is to introduce these guys, and if you want to continue the conversation outside, please feel free, because they are doing some amazing Lexil work. We have about 4 minutes left, though, so if there's anybody in the audience that has any kind of question for these guys. Oh, yes, over here in the front. Sir. The question was the director of Here, the Tom Hanks movie, aware of these possibilities before this project began, or were you?
Yeah, no, he knew. He definitely knew. He was trying to tell this story, and they had been thinking about it for a long time, actually. But and then his visual effects supervisor, Kevin Bailey, saw Deep Tom Cruise on TikTok, and they were like, "Oh, wow, wait, what just happened here? This is one guy. This is ultimately what our company has started with." So and they came to us and they asked us to do a screen test. And they asked a couple of other companies, large established companies, some more other AI startups, and it came out in a way that they were like, okay, it looks like we can do this. Let's try this out. But we were sometimes joking on the set, like 6 months ago we couldn't have done this. Like it's that fast that everything is evolving. Yeah.
Okay, we have time for one last question. I see the lady back there, please.
No.
No. That's an easy one.
Just me.
If you look up here, you can see there, and I come from American Cinematographer magazine. We all come from different places. Is there a platform to?
For us, it's in-house tools. Like we train our own models. Yeah.
We play with everything. All the latest, greatest across the board, constantly changing. VO2, 12 Labs, Runway, Topaz. We could be up here all day naming things.
Yeah.
All right, big round of applause, everybody, and then I'm going to do a quick audience participation. We need to do our selfies, so everybody look like you're having an amazing time. Like jump up and down, like. You're great. Thank you, guys.